Welcome back to our Ruched YouTube channel. In today's class, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful V-neck dress. It has a ruche design on the shoulder. As you can see, you can adjust the shoulder to have ruffles, and you can leave it straight if that is what you prefer. The waistline is kind of fitted, it gives you like a snatched effect, and then it has gathers all around the hem of the waistline. It's a simple tutorial. I'm going to take you through how to cut and sew this in this class. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So we're going to start by, I'm going to be drafting this on my paper. You can, you should draft on your paper so you don't waste your fabric. So the first thing I will do is to mark my allowance. Remember, it has a ruche effect on the shoulder, and you can see the allowance I'm marking is quite big. You can do 1 or 1.5 inches so that you have enough to create casing for your robe, to create that ruche effect. So after that, you mark your shoulder measurement plus your sleeve measurement. The shoulder I worked with was 8 and the sleeve length is 12, so altogether I have 20 inches. So I'm going to mark it so that you can see. So that's 20 inches. That's the width I worked with. For my neckline, I marked 3 inches by 7.5 for the front. For the width, you can do 2.5 because you know it's ruche, and once you drag it, it will be wider. So where on that 20 inches mark, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I connected to the neck width. So now the next measurement you're going to mark is your sleeve opening. So you just measure around sleeve loosely. There I marked 8 inches from where my shoulder slope stopped. And then now I'm taking my vertical measurement. So I'm marking my bust point, my under bust, my waistline, and where I want the first part of the dress to end. So for me, I just measured five inches away from my waist. That's the full length that I worked with before I had my gathers. So if your waist is 16, then if you had 5 inches, you have 21 inches. So I'm labeling the lines. That's my under bust, waist, and the full length for the blouse. So once you do that, you start taking your circumference measurements. Your bust divided by 4, you mark it. Your waist divided by 4, whatever it is, you mark it. And then here, for the purpose of shaping, remember this did not get to our hip length. So to make the shaping easy, I'm just going to mark my hip length. The hip length is 24. Can you see? I'm not ruling it or anything. I'm just marking it to make it easier for me. And then on that point, I mark my actual hip divided by 4. And when you are connecting it, once you place it like that, you already know how the side is going to be. So you don't have to mark it to the hip length because our length does not get to the hip. So I just stopped marking where my length is going to be. So that mark is just a guide so that I will know how the side seam is going to be. That's why I marked it. So now for the basque effect, I came down by 2 inches from my waist and I connected it to the hem like that. So if you don't want it that much, you can do 3 inches from your waist. So now before I cut it out, I want to add my seam allowance on my paper. So you can do 1 inch or 1.5 inches, but I think I did 1.5 because this person wants allowance. So I just added 1.5 inches all around, and I connected it up to where my side seam is going to stop. Can you see that? So the next now is to create the round armhole. So I'm just measuring the same length that I used for my armhole, for my sleeve opening. I'm measuring it there, and then I'm creating my space. So remember that this is going to have a ruche effect on the under bust. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, my under bust, I'm going to come in by 3 inches so that I can shape it to the armhole, just to create like a small armhole there. Can you see what I'm doing? You can use your free hand as well. So now we're going to be cutting it on the under bust, and then of course it's going to be in excess. So the excess is what we're going to be gathering to our under bust. So that's how you're going to cut. I'm cutting it just like that, and then here, because of the shoulder slope, the allowance is no longer equal. So I'm going to remark my allowance following the shoulder slope line that I have. So once I mark it, I'll take my ruler and then connect into a straight line, and then I'm going to reconnect my neckline as well. So once you do that, you grab your scissors and then you cut that out. So once you cut it out, you already see that's the upper part. Then you're going to cut the under bust and waist. That is your actual normal measurement. Can you see it's smaller? So we are going to be gathering the excess of the under bust to fit into what we have on the lower part, which is our actual measurement. So now for the back, I want the depth of the back to be on the under bust. So I'm just placing my ruler and then I'm going to mark for my neck width all the way to my under bust. That's the depth I want for my under bust. You can do whichever one you want. So here I just added zipper allowance for the back because I'm using the same paper to cut both front and back. So now we are taking out the front neckline, and once we cut the front on our fabric, we'll cut the back as well. So I'm gonna have to cut on my fabric. That's the back, can you see? And that's the front. The front is going to be cut on fold. And I also cut a small facing so that I can turn it on because I don't like to use bias. So I cut facing for the back as well. And that is what I'm going to use to turn out for both my front and back. And then for the second part, that's the fitted part, I have cut it out. The front is going to be cut on fold as well, and I cut lining for it. And then for the back, I added my zipper allowance already, and I cut it out as well. So now I have gone ahead to turn with my facing, can you see? And I weaved the edges so that it can be neat. So because it's a V neckline, you just grab your scissors and notch that V part so that it can relax, and then you'll be able to turn it and iron. So I did the same thing for the back as well. I used the facing to turn the back as well. So once you iron it, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and hem the sleeve separately. Remember, we are creating a casing. So if you sew your shoulder together before hemming the sleeve, you are going to close your casing. So you have to hem the sleeve separately before joining to your shoulder. So I'll just go to the sewing machine now, hem the front and back separately. That's the sleeve. Can you see? I have done that. So after hemming your sleeve separately, that is when you're going to place the shoulder of the front and back against each other. Okay, you're not going to be turning it with your lining. You're just going to be placing them against each other like that. And then you measure your allowance, whether 1 inch or 1.5, whatever allowance you left, that's what you're going to use to sew. And you see, I've gone ahead to sew it, and you can see how big my allowance is. So now you can take it to your ironing table, you iron it down so that it can lay flat, and then you just fold it and sew. So that's going to double as your casing for the rope that you are going to use to do the ruche effect. You do the same thing on the other side. You are going to open it up, fold it in, and then sew on it. So once you do that, this is what you are going to have. You are going to create 4 ropes, 2 for each side. Then you are going to use your safety pin to pass it in. So I advise that you pass from your shoulder so that the facing that you created will not disturb you. So once you pass it from the shoulder, it will just go through easily, and then you just pass it till it comes out from the underhead, which is your sleeve opening. So once it comes out like this, you just drag it a little bit. Don't drag too much, enough for the rope to just go inside, and then you go and lock it with your sewing machine. So I have sewn it. I've done locking it now, and I've done that, and then you can see that the shoulder now becomes adjustable. You can adjust the shoulder anyhow you want. So this is what I have. The next thing now is to gather the excess on the underbust into our fitted underbust. That's the second layer of the dress. Can you see how big the underbust is looking? So now if you bring this in, you will clearly see that it's in excess. So the excess that we have, I'm going to go ahead and gather it to fit into what I have there. So I have gathered it now, and then I'm going to take my lining and use it to turn off the rough edges. Can you see? So you just fold this over and then place your lining on it, and then we are going to use that to turn it. So you can see I have turned both the front and back, and it is neat now. So the next thing for you is just to shape the side so that you can add your gathers to the hem. So I'm going to use my pin to hold it, and then I'm going to measure my seam allowance. Whatever seam allowance that you left for yours, you're going to measure it now. Remember, I did 1.5 inches for mine, and then I've used about 1/4 inch to turn the side. So what I have left is 1 1/4, 1.25. So that is what I'm going to be marking from the side. You can see I'm marking 1.25 from the side all around. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, and then I'll just connect them together. Okay, so for this you don't need too much allowance except your clients required for it, just like mine. But the shorter the allowance, the better. It helps the fabric to lay better. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew it, which I have done. So once you sew it, the next thing now is to measure for our gathers at the hem, which is the third layer of the dress. So you can iron it first, especially if you have plenty allowance, so that the side can lay very well. I'm going to take my tape rule, and then I'll measure around the hem of the blouse of the dress. Now you're going to take your tape rule and measure around the hem. Depending on how full you want the gathers to be, you can multiply by 2 or 3 inches. So if you have 40 inches and you multiply by 3, you cut out a fabric of 120 inches. So I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric, and the length you're going to need for this fabric, you will measure what you have from your shoulder to this part. Okay, I have 21 inches, so you're going to deduct that from your full length. So if your full length is 40, if you want it to be 40, and then you already have 21, you will just use 19 by 20 by 120 inches. I've sewn it, sorry I lost some clips. I've sewn it to the hem of the dress, and this is what I have. Okay, so you just fix your zipper at the back and your dress is ready. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. You can adjust the shoulder anyhow you want. You can drop it down, and you can give it a ruched effect just like we have here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.